Israeli soldiers have been torching Gaza as they've been leaving parts of it. By the way, they're bragging about this on online media about how they're burning down Gaza as they leave certain areas of it. The Israeli military launched an arson spree, setting fire to civilian infrastructure, including the destruction of an essential sanitation plant in Gaza City, the destruction of Palestinian structures following the departure of soldiers who had used them as temporary bases has been a hallmark of Israel's approach to Gaza for 2 years. In July, Israeli reporter Yuval Abraham collected testimonies from soldiers describing a myriad of arson methods. Quote, every Arab house we entered had olive oil. We poured the oil on the sofas, on anything flammable in the apartment, and then we ignited it or threw in a smoke grenade. This was common practice for everywhere they went. In September, Israeli government minister Gamliel told Channel 7 News, quote, we have already completely annihilated 75% of the entire Gaza Strip. There remains 25%, which, as you know, we are now taking over the city of Gaza. There will be nothing left there that would really have the potential to be habitable. Basically saying we're making the place uninhabitable, intention. So they're doing this as they leave certain areas of Gaza. We can all hope that this is a real ceasefire and actually continues to hold in terms of at least not bombing, at least certain things, at least allowing aid in, etc. Don't let them whitewash this. Don't let them tell you, oh my God, it's over. Okay, we can all move on with our life. It was a fucking genocide. Even if it did stop today, even if it all stopped today, still a genocide. And that is the topic at hand. And Trump, one of the biggest genocider-in-chiefs we've had. The scope of the arson perpetrated in Gaza City on the night of October 9th and early morning of October 10th, Thursday night to Friday, just after the ceasefire was agreed to, but before Israel's cabinet had approved it, was broader than any time that Dropside News has been tracking. Here's a photo posted by one of the soldiers proudly burning Gaza. Among the structures that they discovered had been set on fire by the departing soldiers was the Sheikh Ajlan sewage treatment station, a central component of Gaza City's sanitation network. This is, among other things, what stops Gaza from having to dump pure sewage into the ocean, which then kills the ocean. And this wastewater treatment plant has now been entirely burned down. The director of the municipal water utility said the attack is a blow that could push Gaza City's wastewater system to point zero. He added the plant is one of Gaza's oldest and warned that its destruction will set back planned reconstruction efforts by years. I mean, they signed a ceasefire. Why set it on fire? Well, we know why, because they still want to commit genocide, even if they signed a ceasefire or not. Here's just a montage of all the fires being set around Gaza, of just kind of endless giant building fires being set by the IDF as they leave. So yeah, it's just total peace, right? It's just peace. Here's 9 more images of burning fires. This is what Israel considers ceasefire. Just burn the place down as they go, and Trump gets to do his victory lap and say, look at me, I'm the peace president. Why should Israelis be hostages and Palestinians be prisoners, right? It makes one of them sound dirty and evil, and the other one innocent and good. But here's from Reuters. Palestinians rush to embrace prisoners. So let's be clear. These are prisoners, right? They're not hostages. They're not innocent people. They're prisoners. Then they say under a U.S. brokered ceasefire. This is, again, Reuters propaganda. Oh, U.S. brokered ceasefire, right? But this wasn't a U.S. funded and armed genocide, was it? You don't give that detail whatever you call it, whatever you describe what's been going on there. It's not a U.S. funded and armed and allowed and perpetrated genocide. No. But it is a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal. They then say prisoners were released after the Hamas militant group, got to call it a militant group because can't just say Hamas is a political party, right? Hamas militant group, but they don't call Israel the militant regime. They don't call Israel, they don't call IDF the militant group. It's just the IDF. Then it says, freed the last 20 living hostages. So again, Israelis are hostages. Palestinians are prisoners because Palestinians are criminals. Israelis are not. Taken during the October 7th, 2023 attacks. Let's remind everyone, October 7th, in case you forgot. October 7th. Let's tell everyone, October 7th. And then they say that precipitated the war in Gaza, but in fact, there'd been an ongoing war on Gaza when you have people trapped in an open air prison camp with a limited amount of food, water, everything else, and you occasionally just murder a bunch of them. That's really a war. That's an ongoing war, isn't it? Wouldn't you call it? Should you call it that, maybe? Then Reuters continues their subtle propaganda. Israel is set to release 250 Palestinians convicted of murder and other serious crimes. What they don't mention is that Palestinians convicted under the Israeli system, they can be convicted for nothing. They could have done nothing. They're just convicted of murder because most of them get, if they're seen by a judge, most of them are not seen by a judge, but if they are seen by a judge, that judge usually spends about 60 seconds deciding whether to convict Palestinians, and they convict them 99% of the time. It's really a meaningless judicial system. It's not a judicial system. It is a bullshit judicial system. So Reuters can say, oh, they're convicted of murder and that indeed, oh, criminals, oh, awful. Yeah, are they? Are they? Or is that just something Israel tells you to make you feel good about it? Then they say, as well as we'll also release 1,700 Palestinians detained in Gaza. Oh, but these were not convicted of serious crimes, were they? So what are they? What are those 1,700 people detained in Gaza that includes at least some women and children that we won't call women and children? What are they? Oh, they're maybe innocent people, maybe people that did nothing and have been grabbed up by Israel. So Israel has hostages. Is that what? They're hostages. Oh, Reuters. Funny. I've never seen you use the word hostages when it has to do with Palestinians, huh? They then continue to elucidate that 22 of these are Palestinian minors. Oh, what would we call a Palestinian? Would we call them children? Then they say they also are releasing, Israel is also releasing to Hamas the bodies of 360 militants. Oh, who decided they were militants? Was it Israel killing them? Was it when Israel bombed areas and just said anyone we killed was militants? Are you sure, Reuters? Oh, yeah. Then they say they're talking about Hamas releasing the hostages, and they say a dozen masked and black-clad gunmen, members of Hamas's armed wing. Wow, that was descriptive. Wow, that was poetic almost. Do they describe the IDF they say that same way? When IDF soldier walks out, do they say a man in menacing military fatigues, camouflage so that he can murder people without being spotted, walked out into the forefront, a member of Israel's armed militant group? Is that how they describe it? Or do they just say IDF soldiers? Go back to drop site. All living Israeli captives and hundreds of Palestinians have been released. 63 Palestinians were confirmed killed by the health ministry over the past 24 hours. This is during the ceasefire. Most of those, 60 of those, were recovered bodies because when Israel stops bombing, it's easier to recover bodies. At least 39 Palestinians were wounded during this ceasefire time in the past couple of days. The ministry said many bodies remain buried under destroyed buildings and streets. Ambulance and civil defense crews continue to face difficulties reaching them. Roughly 500,000 Palestinians have returned to northern Gaza since the ceasefire went into effect. The UN said that critical aid, including food, medicine, and shelter, is now entering Gaza in a humanitarian scale-up with cooking gas, tents for displaced families, frozen meat, fruit, flour, and medical supplies delivered for the first time since March. Since fucking March. This is the first time they've been able to get food and medical supplies in there. Hundreds of thousands of hot meals and bread bundles have been distributed in northern and southern Gaza as access restrictions eased. The UN added that this is only the start of its 60-day plan under the ceasefire, aiming to expand operations to provide life-saving aid and services to nearly all residents. Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, this is the group of militias that Israel and the U.S. created to distribute food while killing people. GHF food distribution sites are temporarily closed, with GHF saying the move is part of tactical changes during prisoner transfers. Basically, during the ceasefire, it's not as useful for them to be murdering people at the distribution sites. They never cared about actually distributing food. It was all fake. It was all designed to confuse you into thinking that Israel was actually distributing food. So GHF kind of has served its purpose and it's not needed anymore. The UN is preparing to take over food deliveries. 170,000 tons of supplies ready once cleared by Israel. 600 trucks per day are supposed to be allowed in. Who knows whether Israel will actually do it? Over 2,600 Palestinians have been killed at or near the GHF sites trying to get food. In the wake of Israel's partial withdrawal, armed Palestinian groups accused of collaborating with Israel have clashed with security forces and resistance fighters in Gaza City. This is something else that's been done by Israel. There are, believe it or not, because any society, especially a society that is being genocided, there are Palestinians that are basically Israel's collaborators. Who knows what Israel offers these people? Israel uses these groups in Gaza and arms them to basically commit murder and do what Israel would want done. But Israel gets to say, it wasn't us. So that's what this is. Heavy clashes erupted between members of a Palestinian armed group accused of being collaborators and security forces late Sunday. Officials said displaced civilians were also killed. Buses carrying dozens of Palestinian captives freed from Israeli detention arrived in the occupied West Bank and Gaza on Monday as part of the ceasefire agreement. Palestinian captives include, I did those numbers, 1,700 seized from Gaza without charge, 250 serving life sentences that had been charged, but that doesn't mean the charges are true. Who knows how many actually were genuinely accurately charged by Israel. Monday's release still leaves 1,300 Palestinians from Gaza in Israeli custody. Oh, what would we call those? Oh, hostages. Israel still has 1,300. That's just Gazan hostages. They have a lot of hostages from West Bank. They have a lot of hostages of other Palestinians that lived in neither West Bank nor Gaza. Israel still has thousands of hostages after the ceasefire deal. Even if they went by every detail of the ceasefire deal, they would still have thousands of hostages. Hamas released all 20 remaining Israeli captives. Israeli lawmakers chanted Trump's name and gave him repeated standing ovations. Feed his ego, because everyone's afraid of him. Who knows what he'll do next? So just feed the ego. Feed that sad little hole in that poor little man's soul because his daddy didn't love him. Just feed it. Feed it! Trump said generations from now, this will be remembered as a genocide. Sorry. I jumped ahead there. That's let me see. Oh, that's not what he said. Okay. Oh, I was way off. Oh my God, I was off. No, he didn't. He didn't say that at all. He said generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change. Trump called on the Israeli president to pardon Prime Minister Netanyahu because they're both a president and a prime minister. He told he asked the president of Israel to pardon Netanyahu, whom he described as one of the greatest wartime leaders, one of the genociders I've known. He is one of the best. Just one of the greatest genocidal, frothing at the mouth, bloodthirsty lunatics I've ever known. And Trump has known a lot. So that's high praise. That is high fucking praise. He's known a lot of genocidal maniacs. He noted the context of heavy casualties in Gaza with, this is what Trump said, probably 60,000 people lost. Even Trump's number of how many have been killed in this genocide is 60,000. Now, you and I know that if you take what the Lancet Medical Journal says, if you add in famine and disease, we're easily talking in the hundreds of thousands. Very few people that actually take those things into account are refuting those numbers. However, some people want to, some true Zionist idiots want to say, oh, no, it hadn't been that many. It's been mainly Hamas. Yeah, even Donald Trump says 60,000 people have been killed by Israel. Trump responded to a question about Netanyahu's refusal to say the war in Gaza is over. So I guess Netanyahu was asked that and wouldn't give an answer. Trump said the war is over. The war is over. The war is over. He also said the ceasefire is going to hold, and we're going to make sure it holds. Hamas Political Bureau member Mohammed Nazal called any attempt to disarm the resistance, because this was something else in Trump's 20-point plan, was that Hamas would be completely disarmed. But people have pointed out, A, that if you disarm all resistance, then it's just allowing genocide. Also, people have pointed out that it would be nearly impossible to actually disarm all these people, because when you say Hamas, it's very vague. It's basically a lot of average people who decided to take up arms because they were being genocided. Hamas spokesperson has said to disarm the resistance or transfer its arms to an Arab party, absolutely out of the question. Hamad also added that Hamas is closely monitoring the ceasefire, the entry and distribution of aid, and remains in daily contact with mediators. He said the movement will decide responsive steps in the coming hours and days to ensure full implementation on the ground.